Welcome back to Something More with Chris Boyd. I'm Chris Boyd, certified financial planner practitioner, and I'm here with Jeff Perry. We're both with Asset Management Resources. Our firm's a registered investment advisor firm, which means we're fiduciary, and we are compensated by our clients to represent their needs and interests in all matters relating to their financial planning and portfolio management. So if you have any needs, don't hesitate to reach out to us at 508-771-8900, or you can connect with us through our website, amrfinancial.com. Jeff, we've got an upcoming webinar soon.
We
We'd like,
do, and it's football season coming up soon.
yeah, started seeing some of those preseason games. Have you watched any?
No, I am not a preseason guy. It's too many. I know why the coaches are doing. They're testing players and testing
Yeah.
combinations, but I don't find it interesting. I'll watch every regular season and playoff game and many others. Not just
Yeah.
the teams I follow. I'm a big football fan, fantasy football. I'm all in, but preseason, no, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I have my TV set up to record stuff,
Right,
and
absolutely.
I'll look up on a Sunday and suddenly see, oh, there's a pregame Friday or whatever,
Right.
and missed it. Jeez, but not probably worth watching the recorded version. You know what I mean?
No, no.
So in any case, but yeah, it is exciting to think football season's almost here, and it's kind of sad this time of year. My daughter went back to college.
There's a lot of that going on. I'm seeing
Yeah,
it all over my social media where people like you
just
are dropping off their
starting.
children or
Yeah, yeah. All that kind of stuff, right? So it's a change in the season in a sense. It's not officially the end of summer, but as a season, but it feels like there's a transition here as we start getting into a new school year and all that comes with that. It's
absolutely.
for high schools and elementary schools and that sort of thing. It's maybe another week or two, but it's coming up fast.
Well, it depends where you are. As some of our listeners may know, I'm in Florida and school started K
Yeah,
through 12 on August 10th.
yeah. It's already
So
in. You're in the
yeah,
thick of it.
it's already school buses are all over the neighborhood, and as you said, many of the colleges are already starting. So it is a big change, and so and on Cape Cod, the weather is actually you actually start to feel some slight changes, like, oh, fall's coming,
Yes.
right?
It has. It's gotten a little cooler, in a
Mhm.
nice way, but it's
Right.
gone from 70s, 80s to 60s, 70s,
Yep.
and you kind of notice that. Um, do you have any rituals this time of year? I mean, when you have kids getting ready for school, the younger kids, you're like, oh, got to go to Staples. You got all the supplies. You get a big BJ's run, and you're ready for the lunches or whatever. You know what I mean? There's that time of year where there seems like there's certain things. I don't know. Sometimes those school supplies, those office supplies, fresh start kind of gives you a little bit of like, all right, ready for it.
Well,
You know,
our only ritual since moving to Florida is, well, not our only ritual, but related to your question, is our granddaughter Faith comes down to visit before she heads back to school. She's in Rhode Island,
yeah,
so she was just here. So we
nice.
enjoyed another week with her. She comes when school gets out, and then she comes before school starts again. So that's
Bookends
our
for the
ritual.
season, huh? Yeah,
Yep,
that's
and
nice. That's
so
nice.
yeah, we had a great time as
Well,
always.
as we started to allude to, this time of year, it's you start thinking about football and all of that, and we decided to reference our upcoming webinar, which we do quarterly. We do a financial planning webinar, and then earlier in the quarter, we also do a portfolio or economic outlook webinar as well. So this is the time where we're getting ready for our financial planning webinar, and we're calling it the Retirement Red Zone.
See, I'm glad you got my reference because we didn't talk about this before we jumped on. But I was wondering if you were going to get it. I thought you would, but it
Took
was
a
a little
while, but
risky.
yeah.
It took a while. We went around in a circle, but we came back.
So the Retirement Red Zone is one of these things where you're getting in. The red zone in football is like you're in that last 20 yards or whatever.
Right. Close to
It's-
scoring a touchdown.
yeah. So we're thinking in terms of as you're getting closer to retirement. there's a
Right.
whole range of things to be thinking about and preparing for as you get closer. Now, retirement's not really the end zone in many respects because, then you've got this whole other, range of life, that's going to continue. But we tend to think of it as a big goal that we're moving toward. So we're thinking of that as the way we're talking about this. And I think maybe we can talk a little bit about some topics as it relates to as you get close to retirement. I think you mentioned having found a good article. Before we do that, let's mention when the retirement red zone and how you can participate in it. It's coming up on September 20th, and this is actually a client event that Asset Management Resources is preparing for our listeners. But if you should want to, we open it up. This is educational and informative. If you'd like to learn a little bit about things that might be helpful in your retirement, feel free to join us. You can register at our website, amrfinancial.com. But it is happening on September 20th, and it is during the day at 10 a.m. So if you're working and not able to have the flexibility to attend, just be aware we're recording the program, and it will be posted on our website, amrfinancial.com, as well as our YouTube channel. So you can connect with us either of those ways.
I think it's a great name for the webinar because if you think about it, when you start working and you start, getting into real employment, your careers, you're starting to save in your employer sponsored retirement plan, or if you're self-employed in a SEP maybe, or whatever the situation is, and you're kind of marching down that financial field, right? Like a
Yes.
football drive.
Right.
And when you get, I don't know, 5 years or so out before retirement, you're getting close to that end zone. And you're right. I mean, it's a new beginning, it's a new chapter. But as far as that accumulation period of your life where you're saving, you're investing, you're doing all the right things, hopefully. Maybe we can talk about some of those things that you should be doing anyway.
Yeah.
And your goal, the touchdown goal, is that you reach that critical mass, or that number, whatever it is for you, very individualized by a person or a couple. But when you reach that, it is actually a touchdown. You've scored. You can live that life. You can live that life you planned for, you dreamed for. And so I love the touchdown analogy,
Yeah.
and the red zone analogy, to really get people focused in. But I do want to say, because I'm starting to see some drafts of our, everybody's working on this webinar, is even if you're in retirement, you should watch the webinar, because the issues, the subject matter that we're going to go over, as you correctly said a minute ago, it's not over
Right.
when you score, right?
Yeah.
When you pull that plug
Just
and
you're
say,
not
I have
still
enough,
needs to be monitored, right?
right? Monitored, or maybe you missed something, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you happen to score, but you have a couple of pieces to the puzzle that you should do some work on. So,
Yeah, it's
th-
so true. We when we think of that score, we're really talking about financial freedom, right?
yes,
The idea that you have the resources you need to be financially independent, irrespective of whether you decide to work or not. It becomes optional at that
right,
point.
right,
And the freedom that that can represent for people, the choices that can open up, and how they spend their time, what they're passionate about, whether it's for pay or not for pay. These are all things you can entertain when you reach that goal. And
yeah.
so it's really important to be moving toward that, so that you have that sense of opportunity of um, what's important in my life. What do I really want to spend my time on? What's going to give me a sense of purpose and fulfillment? We talk about on the show being fulfillment facilitators.
Right.
This is part of that mindset, that if we can help you get to a point of financial freedom, it can help you to spend your time where it gives you the greatest joy.
And that's a wonderful goal. It's not as easy. It's easy to think about and, to strive to get there. But when you're in that red zone, when you're getting close, it becomes a more dynamic and complicated thing in your head and in your life, and if you have a spouse or a partner. in that dynamic about okay, so everybody's looking at the finances only, right? How
Right.
much money do we need? How much income do we need? That's the kind of easy thing that people think about when they think about approaching retirement. But then some other things start to, you know, you just framed it very well. Like, all right, what do I want to do? I can do whatever I'd like to financially, but what do I want to do? And that is really a complicated, and once again, not to overuse the word on this episode, but individual analysis and
Yeah.
calculation. And it takes some time. It's not something you just say, okay, this is what I want to do. It should be a process. And, one of those articles, maybe it's a good transition, but one of those articles that I was talking to you about off the air what had to do with couples. It was in Bottom Line magazine, which I've quoted before. And, the subject matter is how to handle marriage and money. But it's certainly relevant to our conversation here about retirement. If you have a spouse, a partner, however you want to frame it, uh, and you're both approaching retirement, even if one of you is going to be working a little longer, it's really important, just as important as the numbers, is to make sure that you have a shared vision. And if not, how's it going to work out, right?
Right.
I mean, you think about the differences. Some people may say, I want to reach that number, retire, and travel the world. And someone in that same house may have the vision like, I can't wait to retire and not have to go anywhere anymore.
Very true. We run into this a lot. But just let me get to that in a moment. There's that quantitative part of the planning, and there's a qualitative part of the planning.
Well said. Yeah.
And they're both important. And to your point, when you're dealing with a couple, if you don't spend a little bit of time talking about it and maybe aligning your vision of what this is, it can be a source of tension. We've had many times we've had couples, and one wants to spend their time in Florida, one wants to be close to the family, or I say Florida, but wherever warm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a
Um,
common place to go.
yeah, yeah. We've had conversations with people where he wants to travel the country in an RV, and she doesn't want to give up the house. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like,
Right.
or that kind of stuff, vice versa, or whatever. Um, we've got someone who loves to travel, and someone who really just wants to kind of find their space, and
Right.
hunker down. Your point about someone who's traveled a lot for work might not really want to travel, where this
Right.
person maybe hasn't and would like to. That's a great example for one versus the other. Um, so there's those kinds of issues, and then there's other kinds of issues as well, right? There's, um, you know, sometimes someone who's very attentive and disciplined and deliberate, let's say, about
No.
their expenses,
Right.
and one who's more frivolous and easygoing about it, if you will, and perhaps spends more than the other might be comfortable with,
Hmm.
or uh, as an example,
Yep.
these underlying kinds of considerations, if they're not communicated and um, considered, you know what I mean, intention, being thoughtful of one another can really create some strain.
Yep.
I don't know.
And we do find that many times one person in the couple is, even if not formally in charge, but takes the role of being in charge of the finances, paying the bills, monitoring the investments. And, the other person may have other responsibilities in the marriage and in the household. But as you're in that red zone, it is the perfect time to kind of reset that and make sure that both parties in this couple, this couple that we're talking about, knows the situation, knows the income, knows the assets, knows the challenges to their plan, and
Sure.
really gets an understanding of how it works. Because as people age, someone else need might who is not in charge of the finances might need to step in. And if you
Right.
haven't agreed, or simply if you haven't agreed upon budget, then you both have the same expectations about spending for luxury goods, for travel, for new cars, for gifting to the family. That's another one that I know that we talk a lot up to our
Yeah.
clients.
Yeah.
two people in a marriage can have very different views about how they should help their children and grandchildren. And if you're not on the same page or you go outside of what you're able to do, that issue can really throw a wrench, if you will, into your own retirement security. So, all these issues, it's really important that both parties know the situation and they're on the same page. And if they're not on the same page, then they talk about how to manage that. You don't expect everybody's going to agree on everything, but if you're aware of it, you're communicating about it, you can have a strategy that, both parties are satisfied with and buy into.
I think this points to the notion that it's really important to have a financial plan. If,
Exactly.
if you don't have that roadmap really defined, it's a little bit of guesswork. Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? What's going to happen? We
That
had a
might be fine in your 30s.
yeah, as you got plenty of runway to make
Right.
adjustments, course corrections, but as you're approaching that that end zone, it becomes really important. When we were talking with a client just the other day, we were talking about the projections and how the outcome would be. Is making the point that just $1,000 a month of difference in income
Mhm.
had a huge consequence to the viability of their plan. I wanted them to be tuned in that they had a plan that worked, but if there's any deviation, it could really disrupt that plan. So, maybe they'd be wise to, instead of retire as early as they had intended, maybe to give it a couple of years of cushion, or the longer you keep working, there's that much more going into the plan, the savings investment,
Right.
and there's that much less coming out because there's a couple of years that you're not touching it. So there's the compounding benefits, there's the addition benefits, and there's a lack of withdrawal. So 2 years, 5 years can have a huge benefit, um, just in that kind of a scenario. So you wouldn't know that necessarily unless you actually take the time and put that plan together and tinker with the forecasts. And at the same time, it's important to do some of those stress tests.
Right.
You know,
What
uh,
happen what happens
what
if,
is it?
right?
We were talking about maybe, if someone has to step in, that might imply either an incapacity or a death. Um,
A long-term care need,
yeah,
right?
yeah, right. So,
Absolutely.
if that's the case, you can really run into some challenges. So it can mean, hey, we need to have some insurance of one type, maybe
Perhaps,
life
yeah.
insurance in one case, perhaps a different estate planning approach, or an insurance for long-term care approach. Different ways you can kind of approach these issues, but um,
And then on the other side of this, sometimes we have clients and we develop a plan for them, review the plan, and they have more than enough, but they just don't believe that they do, right? They get
yeah,
they
or
get stuck in that phase of
they've been
accumulation.
saving so long and scrimping and being so diligent
Right.
about um, what they might or might not, use those monies for, that they're being so very careful, they miss the opportunity that they have permission, right? To
Right. That's the word, right? They
uh,
have permission. They've earned it, and it's time for them to enjoy it and live that life that they wanted so bad and was so disciplined for. And they need to have that plan, to see the plan, to have a budget, even though they have plenty of resources, but to have a budget and say, just for an example, it's the one I like to use. You have $25,000 a year dedicated for vacations. That means and your plan is solid. That means you can actually spend it and go, or gift, or be philanthropic, or be charitable, or whatever you as an individual want your
yeah.
life and legacy to be. So
You
do
had,
it.
you had mentioned the idea of gifting and
Hmm.
family, and just on a different thing. I can't tell you. You'd be so surprised how often this comes up. That people have the risk of putting their own financial
Oh, sure, yeah.
security at risk because of their desire to be a caring parent.
Uh-huh.
And um, I think this is one of those things that you got to start early and often, is to kind of set expectations as to what's the level of uh, support, and have clear expectations of how often, how much, before people are going to be on their own. And
Right.
you know what I mean? And um, I don't know if that's doing them a favor or not, but I think you got to be thinking that
It
way.
usually that tough love and setting those expectations are usually the right thing to do.
You got to help people get spread their wings.
Right.
So in any case, we'll be talking about some of these kinds of issues, probably more the what to be thinking about, what to be preparing for in that last uh, runway to your retirement red zone there. So keep it in mind. If you're available September 20th, 10 a.m., register on our website, amrfinancial.com. If you need any help on dealing with any of your own personal financial planning issues, don't hesitate to reach out to our office. 508-771-8900 is our local number. You can reach us toll free, 866-771-8901. Jeff, thanks for your help in talking about all these
Always a
issues.
pleasure. Looking forward to this retirement red zone webinar. I think it's going to be right on target for most of our listeners. And like I said, not just for people approaching retirement, for even if you're in retirement, check it out.
Until next time, keep striving for something more.